Hey guys, it's Miss Fuckhammer. I wanted to do just a quick sort of instructional video on the statistics project that you guys have this week. Just kind of walk you through it, give you an example that I did just so that you might be able to get some of your questions answered as to how you can do it. This document has been shared with all of you. The only difference is yours will not say SWAC on it. Yours will say your name. But it is the same document. What you're going to be doing this week is, in an effort for Ms. Casperson and I to get to know our sixth graders better, we are hiring a team of local statisticians, that's you, to collect some data for us and to figure out the statistics of what it means to be a sixth grader at Carmody. And so what you're going to do is you are going to be, quote, interviewing 14 of your fellow students and yourself. You will be using a Google form that I've already created for you that I'll kind of walk you through. And then you're going to use that form to get some answers and to be able to carry out your job of statistician. So this front page just has basic directions on it. All of your daily work pages are behind that. So the very first thing you're going to do are student interviews. So you're going to click on this link, and the very first thing that's going to come up is it's going to make you copy the document. So when you get to the screen, make sure you click on this button that just says make a copy. Okay. Once you've made a copy of it, yours will look like this. And what you're going to do then is you are going to share that with your 14 peers so that you can get their data. This form that you're looking at right here is just where the questions reside. You can go in and you can edit the questions. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could if you wanted to. But the way that you're going to share it is not by like copying and pasting this link, because all that will give them is access to edit your questions. What you want to do is go over here to where it says send. You'll click on that. You're going to go to the second one and get a link. So you're going to copy that link. And once you've copied that link, you are going to email it out or send it out or do whatever you need to do to give it to your friends. You can send it through email. Make sure you just include that link in it. You can send it in a text to your friends. You can send it through Google Chat. You can do any number of things. So like, for instance, if I were going to do Google Chat, I'd go over here. I'm going to go down to where chat is. Okay. I'm going to create a room. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to do a group message. And I'm going to add, sure, I'll do Logan Shepard, I'll do Caden Dull, I'll do Corday Anderson, I'll do Gabe and Jacob and Jordan, I'll do Jacob Sizemore, why not? However many other, you have to do 14 students, and then you're going to message them, and you can include that link, just just paste that form in there, and it sends it off to them. So that's one way that you can send out your link to your 14 peers. That is what you need to do on day one. Now, you're only doing 14 because you yourself are going to be the 15th person in your data. And there's a very specific reason we've done 15. That's so you have an odd number of data points. And I'll tell you why in just a second that's important. So day one, you send out your thing. Please make sure that if you get a form from one of your fellow classmates, fill it out quickly and submit it so that they can get that data back immediately. Please do not waste your time and wait until Friday to fill it out or whatever, because that's really going to mess them up in terms of creating their project for this. So please fill those out as soon as possible. Once you have it filled out, you're then going to want to organize that data. So you are going to take the information from the Google form. When you get some responses, Over here in responses, now, obviously right now I don't have any, but if I did, this would show me all of the responses that I had. I can even click on this green button and it will create a spreadsheet where it organizes it for me into each question. And I can go through that spreadsheet and I can say, okay, what did I have for responses from question 1, and what were my responses from question 2? Okay, I have highlighted here some made up statistics. I made them up. But let's say that these were the responses I got from my 14 friends and myself on all of these questions. Now, I've already given you sort of the blank frequency tables in your own document. You are then going to go through and add them in. So let's say that this is my data. I'm going to go through and I have organized my responses. Now, you'll notice a couple of things about organizing my responses. I have gone one from low to high. There is a very specific reason that I have done that, because it's going to help me later on when I have to calculate the mean, the median, the mode, and the range. Is if I already have them organized from low to high, it will help me out immensely. So even though up here on my highlighted data that I just took directly off of my spreadsheet, they're just a random jumble of numbers. They're not in any sort of order. When I put them in my frequency chart, I organize them in terms of low to high so that I could help myself out later and have less work to do later. So I put them in there. There are my responses in inches and how often they occurred. Remember, frequency means how often something occurs. So like I have one example, one student that responded they were 52 inches. I have one student that was 55 inches, 2 students that were 57 inches, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I went through and I did that for every single one of those. Now you'll see this one has a whole lot of different responses. This one didn't have so many. Okay, I've got some others further on where there's only like this one only had 4 potential responses. That's okay as long as your frequency numbers all add up to 15. So to do a double check, you should always add up those frequency numbers, and they should always add up to 15. So let me do a quick check. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. 12, 13, 14, 15. Yep, they're at 15. Okay, so I've done all of my frequency tables from the data that I got. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go through and I am going to use our learning from this week, and I'm going to find those measures of central tendency. I need to calculate the mean, the median, the mode, and the range for every single question. Now, I only did this on one of my questions. You are going to do it on all 5 of your questions. Okay. If you're not sure what the mean, the median, the mode, and the range are, I would suggest you head over and look at the lesson activities, because that will teach you what those are. But what I did is I went back up and I said, okay, height of my friends. I brought up my calculator. Please, please, please use your calculators. Brought up my calculator and I just started typing it in. 57 plus 52 and 62 and 62 or et cetera, et cetera. I went through the whole list. I added them all up. I got finally to where I was I had my total number. I divided it by 15 because that's how many different values I have in my list. And I came up with that average of 16.4 or 60.4. So in this mean, I did 60.4. Now on all of yours, your height in inches had to be to the nearest inch. But mine, my mean or the average height has a decimal in it. That's okay. The reason it has a decimal point in it is because when I add up all those numbers, dividing them by that odd number of 15, it may or may not go in there an even number of times. It's okay if your mean has a decimal point in it. In fact, the majority of them probably will, because it's very rare to get a total that the number of values you have goes into evenly. Okay, so I use that. Here is where having them in order comes in handy with the mean, the median, the mode, and the range, okay? I can go back up to my data and I can look. The median, remember, is the middle value, but your numbers have to be in order from least to greatest, okay? I've done that a little bit. So I now need to go through and say, okay, here's my smallest, there's my biggest. Next smallest, next biggest. Next, 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 next. Notice I did 2 marks there because there were 2 answers there. Next, 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 next. And I find out that this one response that is at 61 is my median response. So I can now take that back and I can say, okay, my median response, because they were in order, is 61. Mode, putting in the frequency chart makes it really easy. I can look at this and say, okay, I have 3 responses here, and that's more responses than anywhere else. So those 3 responses go with the answer of 62. So I know that my mode is 62. Go down, put your mode in 62. The range, again, is just simply I'm taking my smallest and I am subtracting that from my biggest. So 68 minus 52, I get the answer of 16. So my range is 16. As you're completing this project, the very last thing that you have to do, after you've calculated your mean, your median, your mode, your range for all 5 of your questions, the last thing you're going to do on day 4 is a summary of this information. Remember, you're doing this, you were tasked with this so that you could tell Ms. Casperson and I a little bit more about our kids. Okay, what we're looking for is what makes the typical 6th grader. So we don't want to know that, hey, there's one kid that's giant and is 6 foot, but then we have another kid who's really, really short and only 4'2". Okay, we don't want to know necessarily about what those outliers. What we want to know is using the average, using that median, using that mode, what creates that typical kid. And so you're going to create sort of a very short paragraph description, such as the one I did. For the typical 6th grader at Carmody Middle School, there's an average of 60.4 inches tall. They live with about 2 siblings as a home. Notice I said about because your average is probably going to give you a decimal. And you don't want to say they live with like 2.3 siblings at home because you can't have 0.3 siblings. You can't have a third of a person. So you're going to say about. It's okay to round on those. They live with about 2 siblings at home. They own 2 pets. They participate in 1 extracurricular school activity, and they spend approximately 4 hours working on virtual school at home. This summary does not have to be long. It just needs to be a short paragraph at most that describes what these kids, what the average 6th grader, what is typical of our 6th grade students at the time. If you have any questions beyond what I've done in this video, make sure that you ask me.